And good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another panel brought to you by the Alex Kirsch Project. If you're a new member, do not forget to show this channel some love by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Feel free to leave some comments in the comment section, and if you have any questions throughout the panel, feel free to drop them and I'll read them. I would like to take the time to welcome my panel this evening. Coming back for a second go-around is Fresh Faces, New Ideas, and everyone else, however, is a first-timer here on the Alex Kirsch Project. Welcome Blind Tio, New Socialist Era, Chance of Flurry. Welcome, gentlemen, and please feel free to introduce yourselves before we get into the topic itself. So go ahead and Fresh, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Fresh Faces, New Ideas. I do political streaming. I'm a SoCDem. I do streaming during the week, 1 p.m. EST. And you can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/FreshFacesNewIdeas, or you can find me on Twitter at Faces Ideas, or you can find me on the YouTube, which I'm posting more often now, on Fresh Faces New Ideas. I'm happy to be back here, and I hope I'll come back for more.
Fantastic. All right, New Socialist, what you got?
Hey, this is New Socialist Era here, bringing it to you as I always do. Freedom and liberty style is what I'm all about. Been talking politics online for 20 plus years. Not every day, mind you, but 20 years since the late 90s. But anyway, you can find me over YouTube, New Socialist Era. Also, if you follow me over on Twitch at New Socialist Era, I'll follow you back, even if you're right wing or whatever. So anyway, let's see how this goes.
Fantastic. Tio.
Hi, everybody. My name is Blind Tio, legally blind jazz musician and activist. I consider myself an anarcho-pacifist, if you want to get very specific, but just libertarian socialist generally. And you can find me currently. I'm not doing any streaming or projects, but look forward to doing that soon. But you can find me on the Politically Provoked Discord pretty much daily. So if you want to find me, you'll find me there.
All right, Carl.
Yeah, my name is Carl Fleury, Chance of Flurry podcast, where you can find me. You can check me out. We're on YouTube, BitChute, Rumble. We're on pretty much every platform. I myself am an anarcho-mutualist. And, you know, we do a show where there's, I guess, two of us, and I'm opposed by a bit more of a right-wing libertarian. So it's an interesting thing that you guys can check out if you ever want to. So that's it.
Fantastic. Well, once again, gentlemen, I appreciate everybody taking the time out of their days to become part of this platform today. So, all right. So tonight's topic is the federal minimum wage, the fruits of your labor. How much is it worth to you, essentially? So, a little bit of backstory and a little bit of background about the topic, okay? So, when I worked at NORPAC, a green bean cannery, in the summers of 1999, 2000, and 2001, I worked graveyard before I joined the Army. Once I left before I joined the Army, I was getting paid $7.50 an hour. However, when I started in the summer of 1999, I was getting paid $6.85 an hour. Now, I thought that was banking. However, in the last 20 years, minimum wage has failed to keep pace with inflation. Minimum wage as of 19 July 2021 is $7.25 federal, and however, tipped wages is $2.13. Inflation rates across the United States is 5.4%. Cost of living averages are at $1,000 to $1,500 per month. This includes your accommodation costs, room, and board. Average costs of groceries are about $6,000 to $602 a year, with about $2,600 food away from home and about $3,900 food at home. An average citizen in the United States must worry about the following expenses to ensure they can survive in this economy. They have to worry about mortgage, rent, homeowners and renters insurance, property tax, auto insurance, health insurance, out-of-pocket medical costs, life insurance, electricity and gas, water, sanitation, garbage, groceries, toiletries, and other essentials, car payments, gasoline, public transportation, internet, cell phone or landline, student loan payments, other minimum loan payments, and child care. Now, considering the fact that nowadays you have two parents in a household that need to work in order to keep up with these expenses, the average American works about 34.7 hours per week as of June 2021, which, depending on the job you have, you could barely be able to scrape by at this point. Congress has consistently been battered down for raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour, which there appears to be quite a bit of resistance. Now, we're going to address each of this bit of resistance throughout the panel. So first, I would like for each of the panelists to give their points of view on the federal minimum wage, and should just go to $15 an hour across the board? Or should the federal minimum wage be beneficial to the average American worker to ensure they cannot just make ends meet, but they can also live comfortably? So we're going to start with Carl. What you got?
Well, I personally think that the minimum wage is, I mean, currently I'm Canadian, so I had to do a bit of research into the numbers in the U.S. Before coming on the panel. But, you know, considering $7.25 an hour is far lower than, you know, the buying power that we have currently is far less than what we had even in the 1960s. So, I mean, it hasn't moved in the longest period since the fair election or the Fair Labor Standards Act was implemented. So, I mean, I think that it does need to change. I think that it should be geared in some way to inflation if we're going to have a minimum wage. You know, a lot of countries already have this system implemented where, you know, there's kind of a formula that would make gradual changes year by year based on inflation. You know, that way that we're not stuck with this system where, you know, every few years we have to slap businesses with like this big change, you know, which can affect them in some ways, but obviously not as much as generally touted in the media. So I personally think that, you know, at the very least, the wage should be upped. But I mean, my personal stance is generally based on worker ownership. So it's a little bit of a different system. But if we're going to argue a wage, then yeah, I obviously think it should be raised quite a bit right now. If we kept up with inflation, I think that what I was reading is it would be about just over $24 an hour today or something of that sort. So I think that, you know, we could probably work our way somewhere along those lines anyway.
Okay. Tio?
All right. Also, like Carl, I'm pushing for a different type of future, but let's talk about the current system and when it was implemented. So minimum wage was started as part of the New Deal. I believe it was around 1938 it began. And if you look, the rules for raising minimum wage, Congress had to do it every year. Dumb idea to begin with, right? But if you look, like they did it as first as like a little, look, we raised your minimum wage. So like, so everybody would like enjoy what Congress did, like a little bump to their approval rating, right? So if you look, I have a graph, maybe we can show it later. I don't know, Alex, I'll send it to you in Discord. But it has a graph of when the federal minimum wage, well, I'll do it backwards that way so it makes more sense. So like they were raising it every year, in line with the cost of living until they reached, guess who? Mr. Ronald Reagan, going away from Keynesian economics to trickle-down economics. And then you'll see like the whole Reagan presidency, the minimum wage did not move at all. Then Bush raised it some, then Clinton raised it some, and Obama raised it some. But instead of a steady increase that wouldn't affect small businesses negatively, because of Reagan doing that, no raising for 8 years, now raising it is detrimental to small businesses, right? So the ideal plan to me is what we do with Social Security, right? So I'm on Social Security because I'm blind, and we have what are called cost of living adjustments every year, meaning the pay we get from Social Security goes up every year based on the cost of living, not inflation, because that's a different graph. I could talk about that like as a tangent, but really the minimum wage should go up with the cost of inflation. I mean the cost of living index, right? Mm-hmm. And I have graphs that I sent to Alex that show both of those, trends,
yeah,
et cetera, too. So that's the problem. We should have minimum wage be tied automatically. Like it shouldn't take an act of Congress. It should just be automatically based on the cost of living.
Okay. Joe, what you got?
Only thing I say about the federal minimum wage is that you have these big money interests, of course, who are doing whatever they can to have politicians in office to keep the minimum wage from going up just to maximize their profits. A lot of these businesses could pay their employees at least $15 an hour. They just don't choose to, and the ones they can't are usually on the edge of closing down anyway. Private businesses especially, they close down all the time due to one reason or another. So using that as an excuse to keep, what about the poor businesses that are going to be affected by this? Like, if they're treading water as it is, they're about to go down the toilet anyway. So might as well just, with incremental steps over, say, 5 years or so, something like that. Ramp it up slowly to $15 an hour. And if we got to provide some subsidies for these smaller businesses to basically get like wage rebates or something like that along the lines to stay open and afloat while they can adjust, great. I'm all for that too. It's a matter of all these other countries, they've figured out how to get a much more livable wage. Um, Again, that's the key, much more livable, because livable can be subjective based on person to person. So at least something that's above $10 an hour, they figured it out, and their economies haven't collapsed and in on themselves and been destroyed. So if they can do it, we can do it too. And then anybody out there who wants to be like, oh, no, we can't compare the United States to any other nation. Well, the thing is, those are usually the people who say America's number one. So, it's like when you say that, you're comparing the United States to other countries, you dillweed. So, yeah, it's high time we do it. It's a matter of getting the right kind of politicians elected to actually go in there and do it. Get rid of the Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin types, especially. They're good for nothing, even though they're going to have their nice little cushy lobbying jobs after they get voted out. The sooner the better. That's the way I see it. There definitely needs to be a floor so people don't get taken advantage of by these privateer types who just only want to care about maximizing profits, ignoring externalities, that sort of thing, to make a much more, I'd say, sustainable economic system from the bottom up.
Okay, fair enough. All right, Fresh, what you got for your opening statement?
Yeah, so we're all in agreement it needs to be higher. How we tie that to different things is probably up for debate, and ultimately where the system will be probably up for debate. Yeah, we know it needs to be higher. We know there was just recently a study released that nowhere in the country can you afford a 2-bedroom apartment on minimum wage, and in most of the country you can't afford it on a single wage, a single bedroom in a single wage. Whether or not it should ultimately be the same for every state is a different matter, because what the cost of living in West Virginia is significantly lower than what it is in California. So that's where we have to, we can give and take. Ultimately, there's going to be some type of sticker shock to some of these smaller businesses when the minimum wage is increased, because of how far it has to jump to hit a acceptable level. We can obviously separate that from taking some of the subsidies from the corporations, like oil subsidies that don't need it anymore, and help subsidize smaller businesses. Also, for this idea of my business can't function if I don't pay my workers starvation wages, probably means that you should not be in business anyway. And as for the other thing is massive corporations like Walmart used to be able to pay their workers nothing, and then they could force them to be on food stamps so they can maximize their profit as well. There's a lot into this. I think most of us are in agreement on most of this. It's just working out the details at this point.
Okay, yeah, that's completely fair. So here's my first question. Okay, so when it comes down now, Joe, New Socialist Eric actually kind of hit on this a little bit. So fortunately, this is actually kind of like a nice segue into my first question. So as we know, one of our biggest problems right now is, for example, you got the mom and pop shops like in a little small town, like out in the middle of like Kansas or whatever small town you might have, right? You got a mom and pop shop that's like struggling to make ends meet, and then next thing you know, here comes a Walmart, here comes McDonald's that's gonna kind of swallow these businesses up. Or hey, let's go big. They're bringing in the Amazon factory, and the Amazon factory is going to bring in these $15 hour jobs. And it's basically going to swallow these small businesses up, okay? So here's my first question, okay? Should the federal minimum wage across the United States be no less than $15 an hour, even though that could possibly hurt small businesses who cannot compete with major corporations like McDonald's and Walmart, etc.? Because there's a lot of major corporations out there that can afford to do so, but maybe they're just choosing not to. Now, do you think that this could possibly actually swallow up small businesses? And we'll start with you, Joe.
It can. Business, like I said before, businesses get swallowed for other reasons too, mismanagement or just bad luck. Like I said, I don't like you being used as an excuse. Hey, we can't. What about those relatively few small pops? mom and pop shops, can't do it because they always get hurt and they'll shut down. But like I said before, we can always provide subsidies. I mean, the federal government and their big money buddies, they don't mind that money. But and if you offer this money or funding to people who are only small businesses and they thumb their nose at it, hey, that's the choice that they made. We gave them a way out to keep their business open. And really, if you increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour, people have more money to spend. And if anything, there was this ice cream shop in New York who recently, I'm sure a few of us have seen the article, who tried everything under the sun, every little thing, tried getting employees from other stores or whatever. And they finally did the last thing, an offer $15 an hour. Next thing you know, a bunch of people applied. And because of that, word got out. And then a lot more people supported the business, and they've had more business than than they've ever had before, and they're doing just fine and dandy. And their employees, they're happy, service quality's up. I mean, and their rate of turnover is decreased quite a bit, which can also be a pain in the ass for those old businesses, constantly turning over, having to rescreen new people all the time because people they say this job sucks. I mean, I'm doing it for $8 an hour. It's just too much work.
Yeah.
I want to do something that's better. So there's all kinds of ways to soften the impact, if not cancel it out, if and when we slowly ramp up the wage year, like over a matter of 5 or so years from what it is now to 15. Even if it takes 10 years, that's fine by me, as long as it gets put on the path to do that. Offer incentives and subsidies, I think that would go a long way to helping at least that angle out. And if like I said before, if they thumb their nose at it, hey, that's their choice to do it. So we're out for them the way out, and they didn't want to take it. Okay.
All right, Teal.
That's it.
Man, it's hard for me to not like go straight to criticizing capitalism at every turn. So let me try to readjust my. Yeah, like
I think you're really gonna find a lot of people who are gonna disagree with that critique. So yeah, I think you're fine.
Well, I think I think it's intentional. Like I think that they didn't raise the minimum wage because they knew it would hurt small businesses. Because the main goal of capitalists is to own monopolies, right? So they intentionally, in my opinion, like caused this problem of not changing the minimum wage for so many years, and now it's not in our zeitgeist to change it every year like it was done, from when it was implemented until 1979, right? So, like, what we need to combat the capitalists is, like stronger labor power, more bargaining power for the working class, and the way that's going to happen is like workers organizing, stronger unions, worker-owned businesses starting from scratch. Maybe the small businesses weren't paying enough, and maybe they should deserve to go down. But I don't want them to go down just to like make Amazon be the only game in town. And the only way we can challenge, I prefer like small mom and pop shops, customized where of
course,
get away from the alienation, get away from commodity fetishizing. So I think it was intentional. Before Keynesian economics, the business cycle was, I think, almost designed to make it to where we owe the bank our homes, right? So when times get hard, the bank never hurts, right? We start hurting. So what ends up happening? The bank ends up owning more of our houses, our business, our properties, right? And we tried to fix that with the New Deal era with Keynesian economics, trying to put in a safety net for the working class. And ever since then, the owner class has been trying to break down the safety net. And they succeeded once they elected, monetarism. Like Carter, allowed some of those monetarist policies to start in '79, which is why he lost. And then they went full bore into that Reaganomics, monetarist economics, and that's what started that 8 years of no minimum wage raising. And because Reagan was such a good propagandist, nobody seemed to notice, nobody seemed to care. Stealing that from George Carlin, and now we're in the situation we're in. So yeah.
Okay. Fresh.
Yeah. So look, $15 across the board is probably good. Again, we would have to basically figure out what the cost of living for would be sustainable and across the country. But having that as a floor would probably be good pretty much everywhere. Then places like California can figure it out, because I think the cost of living there, they would require something like $30. As for, these ideas that these corporations are going to just overthrow people, first off, there's like a whole lot of nonsense to that. This idea that they're going to automate people. I'm a little bit younger than some of you guys. As far as I can remember, I remember hearing McDonald's is going to automate its people since I was probably about 8. I remember hearing this argument. If they didn't do it during the pandemic, they're not going to do it because you raise the cost of minimum wage. This other argument that, if you raise the minimum wage, the cost of goods is going to explode. That doesn't hold across actual other countries that have higher minimum wages and their goods are comparable or less expensive than us. This idea that the other thing is a perfect example of corporations keeping the wage down artificially was Bessemer. So when they were attempting to unionize, Amazon's argument was, you don't need a union. We already pay you $15 an hour. However, if you looked at comparable warehouses in the area that were unionized, they were averaging $19 an hour. So having that union also helped raise their wages. So it's not like this is new. Obviously, they're going to, and then they lost that court case. That they're going to. I think it's a redo for that unionization.
They're trying it again.
Right. Yeah. Because Amazon was doing this. And the problem was, like New Social Sarah said, is some of these politicians are just purposely in the way. Joe Manchin in particular, it is especially egregious because he has, like, on pretty much every aspect except for voting rights. If you look into Joe Manchin's finances, he has ties to it. He owns a whole bunch of businesses in West Virginia, a whole lot of hotels and stuff that pay their workers something like 8 to 10 cents above whatever their minimum wage is. So they get paid like between like $8 and $12 an hour. So that would impact his finances if those people made more money. What was the last point I had? I got to start writing these down. I'm sorry. We got a lot of, there's so much in depth with this. There's so much long-winded. I will remember it later. I'm going to open up a notepad.
Well, if politicians anyway.
Yep. If you remember, just stop me, or if like somebody else has made it, just wait until they're done. Just let me know. All right, Carl, what you got?
I mean, there's not much I have to add after all that, but I'm just gonna chime in. I think New Socialist Era probably touched on something when it comes to mom and pop shops that maybe we in the interim do need some sort of credit that they can apply for. Obviously, like Tio, I'd rather shop at a local store than one of these corporate giants, and I don't want to see the upward transfer of wealth that we've seen throughout the pandemic just perpetuate itself into eternity. Now, that being said, though, the majority of minimum wage workers are employed by these mega corporations. So the majority of people who would be affected would be these employees. I personally know a lot of small businesses, a lot of mom and pop shops who pay their workers well above the minimum wage, who do just fine because they have a greater relationship with their workers. They incentivize better production. And they understand that, a good environment actually attracts more people to your business and that you end up generally being more successful. That, as well as the fact that, you're also providing the general economy with more disposable income. And so businesses should also see a boost in that respect. So that's about all I had to add to this specific topic there.
No, I'm in full agreement. I mean, that's just a good work environment. Like, I'm a firm believer that if you take care of the workers, employees, and whatnot, they're going to take good care of you. And and that's going to be part of my final thoughts. So let's go ahead and go on to the next question. So we'll start with Tio this time. Does raising the minimum wage increase more economy activity, or do you think it would cause more employers to lay off employees just to make ends meet? Let's say, for example, after the last administration gave cut taxes, right, for major corporations like AT&T, they said, well, guess what we're going to do? We're going to raise the wage for our workers. But guess what they do? They actually ended up cutting 20% of their workforce across their entire corporation to make ends meet. Now, do you think that, like, raising the minimum wage is going to benefit the workers, or is it just going to give them an excuse to cut some people off completely just to make things balance out? I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, this is why I'm an anarchist, because they do have that economic power to screw us all over, right? So they will raise their prices. They will, find ways to, that's capitalism, right? The way a capitalist is successful is he, exploits either his customers, his employees, or his environment that, getting rid of waste cheaply, whatever. And that's how the system is designed for them to get ahead, right? Because the competition they have, if they pay more than their workers, if they pay their workers too much, then they're going to lose, right? Because somebody else is going to outcompete them. Mm-hmm. So, like, without strong communities and strong labor unions to like combat them, like to stand up to them and say, no, this is not good. Like, but the reason it's so hard is wage slavery, right? Everybody spends, all day, mother and father, 8 hours plus a day, plus the commute. Like, they don't have time to look around and see how, hey, we really should get together as a community and say, hey, it's not okay for you to raise, keep your income. So they never lose, and they will never lose, right? Because they make the rules. Because more economic power equals more political power. So yeah, in some of those graphs too, I showed how inflation compared to where the minimum wage dollar bought. And when the minimum wage dollar was worth the most during inflation was during the 50s and 60s, during the Keynesian era. They called it the golden age of American economics. That's when the lower class had more money. Because when the lower class has more money, we spend it, right? It's I forget what it's called. The currency moves quickly, right? The rate of currency. Yep. Whereas rich people, they get more money, they just sit on it. It does not.
The velocity money.
Velocity, thank you. So yeah, that's if we don't organize as people, that's why I love these political shows, and I love that the young people are getting politically engaged because they have wage slavery. That's what it does. It leads to unthinking, unfeeling masses of people that they're so exhausted when they get home from work. All they want to do is watch Netflix and forget about their long day, right? So we need stronger communities because we're having all of these social issues, but no social issue will ever change if the people with the most economic power control the politics. The only things that get enacted are things that benefit them, and they fix the rules to make sure that they continue their gains.
Okay. Carl, you're next.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tio has it spot on. I'm also an anarchist in myself, so obviously a lot of these things that Tio would advocate for, I'm right there with him. The only thing that I guess I'm gonna add here is a lot of these negative impacts that we see to the economy occur whether or not we raise the minimum wage. Mm-hmm. A lot of people want to bring in like the cost of housing is gonna go up. Well, I mean, since the last minimum wage hike, I think it's gone up something like 40% already. So I mean, a lot of these impacts that the owner class wants to attribute to minimum wage, I think it's just an excuse that they use, and that in a lot of cases they're going to slow trickle these things in regardless, and that us raising the wage or at least making sure that there's some sort of floor is the only way that we have to kind of compete against these things, right? So, I mean, they're going to use the government to militate, and as Tio said, more economic power. They have a lot more political power, but we should be using the political power that we do have, in order to make sure that we gain every edge that we can, because they're gonna behave the exact same way.
Okay, Joe, hit me.
Well, for the matters of what will this cause? I think if anything, it will cause the economy to sort of balance out or rebalance itself into a new equilibrium. And maybe it's kind of like throwing a puddle of or swag into a pond. It makes a big splash and waves go out, but then eventually settles back down and to like I said, a new equilibrium of economic activity. Those people who need the money will actually have the money to spend on products and services that they need to get. And people at the economic bottom tend to spend the money almost as soon as they get it, for the most part. And I think if anything, it will actually be a better situation than we have now. To me, poverty is not so much a character flaw, but it's just a lack of money. If people just had a bit more money, it would cause that much more economic growth, which could justify any sort of wage increase. And like I said before, we can look to other countries for examples and see what's going on with them. No system is perfect, but their system hasn't collapsed in on themselves. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a promising thing that see other countries do this. Australia is at $19 an hour, something like that, as a minimum wage, something like that, and they have, it's a giant desert. They pulled it off. I mean, my God, what's our problem? Like I said before, propaganda and bullshit nonstop. But yeah, I mean, it's just gonna be some. Nothing's ever gonna be smooth, perfectly, smooth sailing. But it's definitely gonna end up. That's the thing. End up being a better situation overall.
Sure. All right, Fresh.
First, I want to say it's very weird for me to be on a panel and be the most like right-leaning person on a panel. That is a very weird new thing for me. Uh, but yeah, look. So there was I covered this on my YouTube channel like right when I was starting because I started on YouTube before I went to Twitch. When they were arguing for the $15 minimum wage in the American Rescue Plan, there was I want to say it was a CBO score that said that it would cost something like 1.2 million jobs for the increase. However, uh, um, that increase wasn't like an accurate count. It didn't count for people who were working double jobs. It wouldn't count for people who were going to then start their own businesses and stuff. It wasn't like a totally accurate number. But on the flip side to that, it was also going to raise something like 700,000 or 800,000 people out of poverty. So this
I think it was 900.
Was it 900,000?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was less than a million. There was a little bit of a gap. So ultimately that would have evened itself out. And we know having money in the bottom actually works. Part of the only successful thing we did during the pandemic was our unemployment wages. The $600 extra unemployment was ultimately how we gave more money to people. And economists have looked at it and they said this $600 extra kept the economy from crashing harder than it already did. The other beauty to that was we've seen that workers are understanding that they have more labor power, they have more bargaining power, and that's why they're not going back, and that's why companies are forced to raise their wage. The people who are going to get hurt by this is definitely going to be restaurant industries because they're the ones who are so dependent on their tip workers being paid like literal dog shit with the tip wage. So they're the ones who are going to be hurt the most because they're the ones who basically aren't going to be able to afford people because they're complaining like, look, we can't keep our doors open, but we don't want to raise our wages. And even with them lowering or removing the unemployment benefits from the American Rescue Plan, we haven't seen the type of growth that we expected. We have seen growth, but it's not the type. So we've been over this. It's really like a no-brainer. It's the more money you give to the bottom, it grows up, and the more money you give to the top, it just sits there. And maybe at some point in the last 50 years, we'll realize that trickle-down economics doesn't work, and then we can stop pretending that it does.
No, I got nothing else to add to that. So we'll go ahead and move on.
If I say one thing, just one quick thing. The money thing, right? Money is like this is a saying I once heard. Money is like a pile of manure. If it's a big pile, it just sits there and stinks. If you spread it out, it does a whole lot more good. And that same thing with money.
It's a nice analogy. I never thought about it like that before. So this is why I like these panels. Like you hear something you never really thought about before, right? So, all right. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to our next question. Okay. So, would a minimum wage increase help reduce race and gender inequality, or would it reduce the likelihood of upward mobility? Meaning, would it make it more difficult for people to move up in the economic ladder? And let's go ahead and start with Carl.
Okay. I don't really see how it would generally make it harder for people to move up. I think it would undeniably help the wage gap, the racial wage gap, that is, seeing as the majority of minimum wage workers are people of color. So I think it's, we have historical data to show that is what happens with minimum wage hikes is we do see a decrease in the racial wage gap. In terms of upwards mobility, I mean, I think that, there's a lot of people who currently sit at $15 to $16 an hour who are saying, raising minimum wage up to where I am, that's going to somehow negatively impact me. Well, I mean, I don't see that. As we've talked about, there's a lot of bargaining power with labor. And I think that, if you're a teacher and, the McDonald's worker is making $15 an hour or he's making $16 an hour and that's too close to what you're making, you're going to have a lot more power to tell your employer, hey, listen, you should be paying me a lot more, or I can just go work at McDonald's, which is a much less stressful job, right? So I think, if anything, we're probably going to give people at the bottom a much greater leg up. I don't like seeing these squabbles between the people who are making, who are currently making, 15 to $20 an hour, and the people who are making 70 to 25, when their bosses are making thousands of dollars per hour. So, that's where our focus should be on, just ensuring that we kind of push the bottom further up. And as we said, there's a lot of really great impacts from doing that come to our economy. So I think that's undeniable.
Okay. Sounds fair. Fresh. Hit me.
So look, I brought this up and then Carl corrected me. We touched about it. 900,000 people would be raised out of poverty from raising the minimum wage. So I don't know how you go to a point where not raising it wouldn't affect people's upward mobility if just raising it helps almost 1 million people. As for the racial wealth gap, always having more money will help everything. That's part of the reason there are certain areas that are more crime ridden. That's part of the reason certain areas have more health issues, because their areas are in near super sites and they can't move. Maybe they could get their kids to better schools, do things like that. More money is always an effective way. And Carl's right. We should not be fighting my mom is a teacher, and whenever I have this argument with her, she goes, well, I don't make this much money. And I was like, well, that's not a reason you shouldn't be kicking down. You should be kicking up. So if the person that doesn't do a job that is in demand as you is making what you're making, that gives you bargaining power, especially for teachers. Like, the teachers as it is are incredibly overpaid. We had in the middle of the country, I think it was 2017, 2018, there was like a dozen teacher strikes in like Kentucky and Ohio because all they did was cut their funding. And they're like, listen, we can't do this. And there are certain jobs that by necessity have to be done, and raising their wage would help raise everyone else's. So yeah, obviously giving people more power would help solve racial equality, but you also have to, argue you're not arguing with your fellow worker, you're arguing with the owner class.
Okay. Joe, what you got?
I think everyone else pretty much touched on the points that needed to be touched on. The only thing I would say is, why would it hurt upward mobility? If anything, I think it would, strengthen it a little bit, make people more dedicated to their job and make the job more, more robust. If anything, the quality of whatever they're working on makes them more sincere and serious about working whatever they're doing. It makes them more vested, in the job, either emotionally or just loving the job or whatever. And, make it to where that person wants to actually be, go up into the higher echelons of the company, instead of just being like, hey, look, these guys ain't paying me nothing. I'm just gonna do the bare minimum, and just where they can't fire me. That's the way capitalism works for employees. Is, hey, listen, you pay me just enough to be here. I'll do just enough not to get fired. I will look at it, see how fast everybody else is working, and I'm going to go just a little bit slower than that. And I will take a lot of bathroom breaks. So I've done that before. Sometimes I'll just go into the bathroom stall. I'll close the door. I won't even pull my pants down. I'll just sit on there for 10 minutes and stare at the door like this. Like, is this day over with yet? Oh my God.
That never happens in the workplace.
Yeah, I work for Amazon, and I don't have to pee in a bottle. So I
just piss on the floor. Fuck 'em.
Well, that would be in
the garbage can.
Hey, you're just establishing dominance, right? All right.
Yeah. That's what I'm doing.
Were you good there?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Tio.
Whoa. Okay. It's cart. Okay. I try not to shit on capitalism. Sorry.
Just
for the curse.
Tio.
But I'm going to. I'm going to. Okay. Because I don't like that our culture has this mentality of what you call it, getting ahead, or what words did you use again? What was it?
Upper
mobility.
Yeah.
Why is upper mobility a priority? Like, if you have enough food, quality living establishment, like, I think your priorities should then be like improve your society, not be selfish and gather that manure. And I don't like that just by default so many Americans that are super propagandized like go to that. Well, how are they going to, like I was talking to Baz on Political Revoked Discord. He's like, well, you're going to allow Jeff Bezos, because I'm cool with, like, if you make a better product, like if your labor causes you to make a better commodity, you should get paid better. Like, I got no problem with that. I'm a market socialist. I love free markets, right? But capitalism is this mentality where I need to gather more capital so I can use this capital so I can buy people's labor so I can use their labor to make more capital. And I hate that. I'm a Christian anarchist first. That's how I started my morals, and I'm trying to save souls, right? It's easier for a camel to walk through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to get to heaven. So like, I don't want us to money on my mind, got my mind on my money, got money on my I hate that culture.
Mhm.
I want us to want to improve our society, not make our wallets fat.
I have
Fair enough.
so many questions for you about your ideology.
Yeah,
just,
please.
Just for another
Oh,
time,
I
we
can-
have the discussion. So many questions.
So
All I can say is the religious aspect is someone. If you try, you've probably heard it before. You try to tell someone about the camel thing, go through the ivory needle, and they'll be like, "That's the Old Testament. That doesn't count." Except
No,
Genesis
it's the New
counts.
Testament. That's the New
Oh
Testament.
no, never mind. I'm done then. I don't know.
What is it? My only critique is, my only critique to what you said is, are you telling me that I can't have 10 mega yachts?
No, I'm for democracy, right? So I'm for, like, anarchists are for democracy. And I'm an anarcho-pacifist, meaning like there's this wing of anarchism called militant anarchists, where they want to like punch people in the nose or blow up government buildings, right? And to me, like, anarchy is supposed to be against hierarchies, against unjust hierarchies in particular, right? So what makes you the executioner to want to blow government? To me, that's like antithetical to anarchism, right? Because anarchism wants no one to unjustly decide that what their decision is matters, right? So no, I don't want to force anyone anywhere, anytime. And that's more propaganda, Red Scare bullshit tactics that have mixed up, Stalin, red fascists with, black army, like peasant type anarchists like me.
Wait, I have another question. Are you telling me we don't actually have corporate communism? Because that's what Marjorie Taylor Greene said yesterday.
oh God, never say that name on this stream again. How dare
Dude,
you?
This is just wild. The people. She's gonna announce for president.
Well, no, we do have corporate socialism.
Oh no, we
Meaning,
absolutely
like-
do that.
Yeah.
And I mean, what people think communism is when it comes to like central planning and all these things with like a strong state presence in the economy. I mean, we have that.
Well, that comes from a lack of just understanding terms and how much they've been used as to fearmonger.
Yeah,
And
because I mean,
exactly.
there's a small group of people who control our entire economy, right? So I mean, people who say, "Oh no, I want a free market." Well, I mean, capitalism doesn't like our current state. That's not what we have.
Well, that's why socialists argue we're more free.
Exactly.
So
And anyone who says anything that says corporatism is communism, like that's when you just say, "Well, anything you don't like is communism." Like, this is ridiculous. Like, you understand what communism is? No, I don't know. I heard. Like, these people are so lost. It's so hopeless.
It's because they don't understand the terms anymore. It's
I
double
don't
right.
want to.
Yeah, intentional Red Scare propaganda. They intentionally confuse it. Like Orwell warned us. He told us about newspeak and doublespeak, but we didn't listen, right?
all right, so we'll go on to the next question. Sorry, I didn't want to cut y'all off. I mean, you guys were having a good conversation, but I just kind of want to move on. So
There's a lot of agreement here.
yeah, I mean, well, it's fine because like, even if there's a lot of agreement here, it's good to hear from different perspectives. That way, everybody is coming from their own, I wouldn't say school of thought, but just like it's based upon everybody else's what they've learned over the years, and they're just kind of bringing it together here. So, all right. Anyway, so the next question is does the minimum wage reduce poverty or increase poverty? So let's start with Joe.
I'd have to see some more data on that. It could go either way theoretically, but theoretically is one thing. In reality, when you raise the minimum wage, you do tend to help out people more often than not. So I'd say it helps to reduce it effectively overall. Are there instances and examples where you can point to outside cases that are not normal? Sure, you could. But overall, I think that minimum wage or the federal minimum wage is one component of an economy. If we're going to have an economy, we might as well have one that's going to work for everyone, not just big money interests or those who have lots of assets, have it to make sure it works for everyone. So have other programs in place, a more robust social safety net state or UBI,
Sure.
that sort of thing for every adult citizen. And I think, for example, UBI should be extended to those who have a current valid green card as well, if they're here. And so to reduce them being put in a grinding poverty. So I think overall it's a net benefit to those at the economic bottom, so they can not have to be so financially hard up all the time.
All right, Carl, hit me.
Okay, well, I think we already referenced a CBO study that mentioned that something like 900,000 people would be lifted out of poverty with the increase. And, as stated, there were obviously some things that weren't accounted for in that study. It was, if anything, a bit of a conservative study in terms of how it would impact the economy, which is generally what we see coming out of the government. So I personally think that it's indisputable that it would, generally reduce poverty. Like if these, I guess we could see some job losses, but generally speaking, if we look at the history of the minimum wage like hikes that we've done, I mean, they tend not to impact jobs as much as the media would like us to think. So yeah, that's my take.
Teal.
Okay, the way we can ascertain this is looking at the other social democracies which have stronger minimum wage laws. And if we were living in a more social democratic system, like let's look at France, Australia. I like to especially look at France because France has a history of like workers' movements, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they have like the best worker, like they get the most weeks off for pregnancy leave. They get the most mandatory vacation days. I think they're like only allowed to work 30 hours a week. I think like you're not allowed to work more than that.
Yeah.
But if in this American neoliberal hellhole, the capitalist class can make it to where more people are in poverty. So they can say, hey, look, see more people in poverty now. That's because they bend the rules to fit their agenda. You know what I'm saying? But if you look at, like those other nations that are stronger social democracies, we can see that it does definitely bring people out of poverty.
All right. Fresh.
Yeah, more money makes more people come out of poverty. They literally did this with the UBI study. No social area. It's somewhere in California. I can't remember which.
Stockton.
Yeah. I always bring it up, and I always forget which city it is.
UBI expert.
Yes, that's why I was throwing it to you. It was like $500, and it was like a massive boost. It's the same reason that, like, first off, our unemployment numbers are bullshit anyway, because some states purposely make their unemployment as difficult as possible to get to because they don't want to have high unemployment numbers. That's why places like Florida was bragging that they'd only had gave out like 3% of their unemployment benefits during the pandemic, because that's a good thing. But this is no brainer. If you give people more money, they're not poor. It's like the single. I'm pretty sure there's not a. You'd be hard pressed to find somebody who disagrees with that statement.
Sure, I mean. Yeah,
as Tio said, I mean, the owner class can make it so that more people are in poverty after the minimum wage hike, but that would generally be, I would consider it independent of the minimum wage, right? Like that's just a reaction to the minimum wage. It's not a causal effect or anything like that.
Yeah, if we raise the minimum wage a couple dollars and then a burger goes from, we'll take the McDonald's dollar menu goes from $1 to $7 for the cheap one, then obviously we're going to know okay, well, these companies need to be reined in because they're not doing this.
That's actually one of my next questions here in the future. So we'll talk about that in a second. So, but my next question though, however, okay, so people like Ben Shapiro have made claims that if you raise the minimum wage, the inflation rates are going to go up to keep things balanced within the economy. For example, he'll say if you raise if you raise the minimum wage for like a local grocery store, next thing you know, that grocery store is going to start charging a gallon of milk. It used to be $2.25. It's now going to be $3.25. A loaf of bread is going to increase by $1 or whatnot. So, for example, if you start raising the minimum wage in grocery stores or in fast food restaurants, places like that, all of a sudden the prices are going to start skyrocketing because they just need to be able to make sure that they can actually maintain the not just supply and demand, to make sure that they can actually make sure they can continue to pay the factories that bring them these products, to make sure they can actually pay their workers this fair wage. Is this true, or does it seem kind of like a scare tactic? And you know what? Let's start with Carl this time.
Okay. I 100% think it's a scare tactic. Again, we can look at the international system for this. I think it's somewhere like Denmark. McDonald's employees are getting paid $22 an hour. They have something like 6 weeks paid vacation on top of that, a year's maternity leave. You know, their Big Mac costs 27 cents more than it does in America. So I think that, you know, if that's what we're talking about in terms of price differentials, I think that, you know, the economy should easily eat that cost because the, you know, transition in, you know, a minimum wage worker making $22 an hour over $7.25. You know, obviously it's incomparable the amount of buying power that's going to change and the amount of influx that's going to give the economy, right? So, yeah, I guess that's where I'd be coming from on this one.
Joe, hit me.
All I can say is kind of what Carl said. The price went up nominally because there's a concept that a lot of these economic writers don't really understand when it comes to business. It's called volume, volume of sales per day. And it's not going to have, you know, if minimum wage goes up, even to $15 an hour, they may have to bump up each item's price maybe 10, 20, 30 cents at the most. And Denmark, or the country you mentioned before, Carl mentioned, got a much better, sweeter deal for their workers overall and doesn't really cost so much more. It's well worth it. Will prices go up? Probably a little bit, but it's not going to be the new zero. It's not going to be the new cancel. That's not going to be a zero-sum game. So it's Ben Shapiro, because he's such a shill for his big money masters and supporters. It's a real shame because he can, you know, when his rhetoric is okay, it can be really, really decent, but he's just playing for the wrong team. But you know, I would talk about his height, but I'm not trying to height shame him or say anything like he can do backflips under the bed. But you know, it took a second to get that. I shouldn't do that. I apologize. But no, but right. Ben is like volume. I mean, these what you think they sell 3 Big Macs in one day? They sell like 500 or 1,000 a day. I mean, they could add just a little bit more on their price, and it would even out that way. I mean, people would then be much more supportive of a business that pays their employees something decent from the get. So that's the reality. That's why these right wingers need to learn economics, especially from me. That's it.
Okay. Fresh, hit me.
Yeah, look, we go to the. I was about to look up what the burger cost difference is. Also, when you listen to Ben Shapiro, you have to slow him down so that you can break apart his arguments.
No, that's not true.
Because half of the time they're baby brained or they're I feel statements, not actual based in fact. But look, like buying power is going to increase for people. I'm sure some prices will go up also. And it's also not like the people who complain about this understand what inflation is anyway, because they're arguing that the current inflation that we're dealing with is totally due to the spending during the pandemic, even though the spending mostly took place under Donald Trump. But it's Joe Biden's fault. And even though it's almost entirely tied to the individual supply chains that are currently having issues because there's still a global pandemic and things are still locked down in certain areas, so they're having a hard time reaching that supply and demand. So look, if you're going to argue that if you want to have the argument that it's possible that places become more expensive, yeah, it is possible. But you have to look at realistic arguments. You can't just say, I think a Big Mac is going to cost $23.50, like some people say, instead of $2, when it's just, you know, the data is out there. This is not a this is not like where we're sitting. This is not the 1980s where you have to listen to all your information on the television and a newspaper. There's enough data out there for us to know that this is just nonsense.
Yep.
Teal.
All right, man. To me, like they always say, hey, the prices might go up. But see, that's because we're not punching up. There's not enough socialists, anarchists, trade unionists, labor unions. Because like what should happen, the CEO pay should come down before prices come up in a fair system. But the way they want to make those excuses, like, yeah, the number is going to go up on our products because we can't possibly give up some of our 15 yachts. I'm done.
All right. Okay. So my next question, okay. So I don't know if you all caught this one, but I actually watched the entire Vosh versus Charlie Kirk debate.
Dude, I did that on stream. I enjoyed the hell out of it.
So
Vosh is part of why I do this.
So that was actually a pretty good debate, and I definitely say that Vosh won that debate, like, hands down. It wasn't even close. So, but anyway, Tim Pool actually brought up how John Schneider of Papa John's was raising the wages for his workers, and apparently this isn't confirmed, but he had raised the wages for his workers to be $35 an hour. But Tim Pool claims that they actually raised the price of pizza to go up at Papa John's. Is this just the cost of raising wages for your workers, or do you think John Schneider's just, trying to play a game? Do you think he's just trying to skate by? It's like, let me just raise the prices on my pizzas, and because I'm trying to take care of my workers, more people are going to come by and buy my product. I mean, what do you guys think? And we'll start with Tio this time.
Well, same thing I just said. Like,
Mhm.
right?
Hey, can I ask a clarifying question real quick?
Yes, sir.
Was John Snyder the Papa John's one that were crazy and they fired him for saying the N-word, or is he a different one?
Yeah, that's the same
The
one.
sweaty dude.
But anyway, please go ahead, Tio.
Well, since trickle down economics, right, that got into our mindset, that got into our zeitgeist, that we really believe that the people, the job creators, deserve all of that money that they made, that they shouldn't be, like, let's compare. That's why I love. Let's look at worker cooperatives that me and Carl love to notice, right? Compare the CEO pay in a worker cooperative compared to the average worker, and then let's look at a super neoliberal USA yay capitalism, comparison between their CEO pay and the normal employee pay.
Mm-hmm.
So like if CEO pay was like in a place where it was like, yeah, they still even at Modrigon they get paid, what is it, 50 times more, or no, I forget the numbers, and I used to know the numbers, so I had to look, but it's like thousands times. CEOs make thousands times what their regular employees make. That's ridiculous. That's the thing that the society needs to get upset about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the people need to go, hey, this is not okay for you to own 5 yachts while this city has so many homeless people. Like, it makes no sense to me why people aren't angry about stuff like that. But everybody has different values, I guess.
Joe, hit me.
All right. The thing is, quick. What was the question real quick again?
Basically talk about like how John Snyder raised the cost. He raised the wages $35 an hour for his employees, but then he says that, but then Tim Pool claimed that how the price of pizza has just gone up on Papa John's. I mean, I don't know. I don't buy from Papa John's, so. But do you think you think this is just the price of pizza, or is the cost of raising wages for your workers, is it worth it really?
I think it's in the end is worth it, at least for the good PR. I think a lot of capitalists enjoy good PR because they know got a good message out about their business or good news about the business, good thing. Then people are gonna be more likely to support them than say someone else, especially if they're really raising their wage to 35 an hour for. I'd have to look into that because is he doing it for every single employee, like even the drivers?
That's the claim, but I've not been able to find anything to back that up. Really, I just brought it because Tim Pool brought it up during his debate. So,
yeah, but if it's true, then it's good on him that he's doing that. But in the end, if prices go up, something like $100 a pizza, I don't know if to do that, but
that better be a good pizza.
I like his pizzas, and I like those little pepper painted pepper things come with those little. Sometimes they're a bit too hot, but yeah, the garlic butter's the bomb. I love their garlic butter.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, I mean, it's decent enough pizza. I mean, you get a decent enough price, but yeah, I mean, raising to 35 an hour, I think it's going to garner him a lot of support. And yeah, is it a game? Sure, it's always a game. Capitalism is a game, or being a capitalist is a game, trying to garner as much market share as you can, any way you can. If you can do that through good word of mouth, spreading of what you're trying to do to the people and to get more business that way, that's of course part of the game. But if it's the game being played good or more decent, I'm all for it. But of course, I'm never going to trust someone like him. He's just literally too slimy. He sweats all over the place.
Carl.
That's it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's probably some sort of scheme that he's running, right? Like, I mean, one, he can get a lot of good PR like that, like was mentioned. And two, I mean, he can, undercut the viability of, raising the minimum wage by saying, oh, look, my prices just happened to go up when I did this. So I think he has like some sort of of underlying plan there as well. But I mean, I think it's probably great for his workers that they're being paid that much. I can't imagine if the prices go that high that people are still going to be buying his pizza in this market, even with the good PR that, you're paying your workers sufficiently. And I think that, the price hike that is likely to have been seen is likely to have been simply manufactured by this this owner in order to, again, just undercut the theory that we can raise the minimum wage without seeing these huge increases in prices. So.
Well, to be fair, I think like Peyton Manning did better as far as a PR campaign for Papa John's, because it says every time I score a touchdown or every time the Broncos win a game, put this promotion code and you'll get a free pizza. That dude was killing it for Papa John's, honestly. So, but all right, sorry, go ahead, Fresh.
Look, so just a quick Google search doesn't seem to say that is an accurate way of what they get paid.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, I just did it while we're having this conversation. So whether this is a full search or not, but the other thing is, there's two separate ways to look at this. So there's I don't know how many of you guys know Dan Price. I don't know what exactly he does, but my understanding of his company is he pays them like $70,000 a year, and he cut his own wages during the pandemic so that his people didn't he's generally looked on pretty favorably because of how he treats his workers. On the other hand, we have this story about Chipotle. So Chipotle, there was a story a couple months ago that they were going to raise their prices like 4%. And the reason they said that was because we have to raise it in order to pay for giving our workers a fair living wage. But then it turned out that it had to do with CEO pay. Like if they had just not given their CEOs the bonus, they could have covered like the entirety of their worker raises without doing anything to their prices. It had nothing to do with the worker wages. It was like the CEO stuff. And I think they also had some supply chain issues. So it's the ultimate question. And this is what I'm talking with my chat about is we do know that like we can all agree prices are going to go up to some extent if you raise the minimum wage. Mm-hmm. The question is, how much are you going to raise them? If you are, let's say Burger King versus McDonald's, if the Burger King raises their prices like 1,500% and McDonald's only raises it like 7%, people are going to go to McDonald's more often than they are to Burger King. So like it's by that the market itself should actually kind of stabilize how much they're going to try to screw people. So we're not going to end up with these exorbitant prices that are just like out of nowhere that would just wipe out whatever gains you make by having a living wage. Like in it, I mean, this is obviously it is possible that because our capitalist system is not like it is true capitalism because it's crony capitalism. It wouldn't be able to handle the shock of that. It's possible it might do that, but in theory, it should not be more than the gains because that wouldn't make sense for the buying power that these people would have.
Okay. All right. These are all really good arguments, and I appreciate everybody. So, okay. So my next question. Okay. So I've got about 5 more questions to go. Okay. So this is gonna be pandemic related. So please don't get triggered. All of the people out there that might actually disagree with this. Okay. So COVID did a huge number on the workforce, and some people were unable and still are unable to go back to work right now. Okay. Do you think that maybe it's because some people choose not to go back to work? Or are there contributing factors that could cause someone to not be able to go back into the workforce? So let's go ahead and start with Joe.
This idea that people don't want to go back in the workforce during COVID is very understandable, especially if their benefits are being paid out pretty close to what they were making before. I mean, why would you want to go out and risk yourself to get sick, even if you're vaccinated during the pandemic? I mean, really, they should be giving everyone like at least $1,000 a month emergency UBI right now, but they won't even do that. Just gave us several measly checks, and that was it. They told us to screw off. If they really want to keep workers have money to where the economy can keep going, they can do that. But the idea that people are they're just lazy because they're living large on $300 or whatever a week is beyond ridiculous. I mean, 300 that ain't shit. I mean, I'm sure that most people are doing some side hustles to make a little bit more money on top of that, just to get what they need. $300 a month ain't shit, it really isn't. But that speaks to what a lot of these places are paying their people $300, $400 a week, and it's just like maybe it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that'd be considered a damn decent wage or a damn decent pay per week. But it's just stagnating. Like, why should they go out and during the pandemic risk catching COVID or some weird variant of it and get paid basically the same thing? Just let it ride out. And quite frankly, Americans are so overworked. I don't blame them. If all of a sudden we did do a UBI and people just have the roads about to largely just quit, I wouldn't blame them for taking few years off as a break, because people just been overworked way too much in this country, especially those at the economic bottom taking advantage of their labor and their desperate situation. And eventually it is going to equalize out. This has been shown in the test balance of UBI, but I think that my example is kind of an extreme example. I don't think it's going to happen like that, but
Yeah.
people like that. But yeah, it'll like why should I wouldn't. Would you? Probably not if my options were limited. I mean, I wouldn't. $300 is that ain't shit per week. People talk, oh, that's too generous. Like, yeah, you're a stingy motherfucker. But yeah, but that's pretty much That's pretty much my point. Is give people money, but they won't.
Teal.
There's this great book by David Graeber, anthropologist anarchist that passed away recently called Bullshit Jobs.
Yep.
And where he talks about so many people like realize their job is just bullshit, right? Like the company could run fine without their job. They just like basically given busy work, right? So what I don't know, like my grandpa used to talk to me about this. This is why I'm so left. Like he used to say, we fought labor to only we have to work 40 hours a week, right? And that was what, 1930? And we're still working 40 hours a week. Why? It's because our mindset thinks you have to work 40 hours a week. Like, so what a lot of people I think are starting to realize is that this nuclear family that they propagandize into believe is not the best, not most beneficial. It's more beneficial to have multi-generations in a household. That way you do have that extra security of not having to, that saves on sharing utilities, makes your rent costs come down, right? So the pandemic, there were a lot of people that weren't receiving that bonus to unemployment, like they had nothing else, right? So they had to go either live with family, move to a cheaper location. And now the pandemic also helped us realize that, like, yeah, we don't need to be sitting in rush hour traffic, spend all this money on this long commute, right? So you can almost break even because sometimes your job is actually costing you, commute, stress, medical bills from stress. Like you almost barely break even, right? And if you're lucky, you break a little more than even. A lot of people are starting to realize because they've had this extra time to invest in politics. This is why we're seeing so many more politically invested young people and adults too. Like it's caused them to reevaluate their lives. Like, why am I spending all this time at a job I hate, being underpaid, for a boss who doesn't appreciate me, for barely getting ahead at all? Like, and this is something I try to try to get the fascists, the people that want the strong families. So I'm a Christian anarchist, even though really I'm more of a separatist, but I cling to Christianity still to try to get them to understand that this is what's hurting our family values. It's like, yeah, we're both parents have to work 40 plus hours a week for, it makes no sense, right? But we don't fight for 20 hours a week, we're not picketing the streets like the socialists and communists did, before the New Deal era, that is that political pressure from the left, from the Labor Party, from the two socialist parties, from the Communist Party, that got the Democrats to finally give us concessions, right? But they got rid of the left. The Red Scare took away the left in America until Bernie Sanders kind of brought it back some, right? But we need that counterbalance to get us to see, hey, why is that an average work week? Because in France, like I said, it's like they're not allowed to work more than 30 hours a week. Like they're not allowed to work overtime. Like that's their culture, right? Their culture is, in like Spanish culture, they take siestas, man. Like they close everything down afternoon. And, they only work in the morning. And like the British used to be freaked out because they were trying to get like the Spanish to work the plantations the way the English did. And that's not our culture, man. But like, why are we working so hard? We work harder than the Japanese, and they're the second hardest working society in their culture, right? So like, it makes no sense to me. And like me, as somebody who went blind, right, and I got a disability check, and that little disability check was barely enough for me to make minimum, right? But what it did, it freed me to pursue my art and to create my own businesses, to try to improve my society. I started joining organizations to help feed the homeless. I started, getting more involved politically, like going to city council meetings and having discussions with the mayor and stuff. So it freed me up to try to improve society, not spend my whole day being in a rat wheel. So that's it. I think we need to take this opportunity that Corona gave us to like re-educate the working class to no longer be exploited. People are starting to get it, and they don't want to be exploited anymore. And that's where we're pushing worker-owned corporations, co-ops. The internet has made it to where people can make a living streaming. That's why a lot of people have started streaming. You know what I'm saying? Those new things are going to start happening, right? So yeah, maybe automation is going to come, and they like to fear monger with that.
Well,
Well, so you know what? Maybe automation. Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. I'll save it.
Yeah.
Ooh.
All right. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, no worries. It's just like automation was gonna come up. So, all right, Fresh, what you got?
I'm sorry. There's a lot going on. The question was, how has the pandemic influenced, or Americans lazy because of the pandemic?
Well,
right?
okay, so
The labor.
Is it because
The
people
labor
choose
shortage.
or not? Is it because people are choosing not to go back to work, or are there contributing factors as to why people are not coming back to work?
Okay. First, this is a right-wing talking point, and as for right-wingers, it is very capable of having two conflicting thoughts simultaneously. They have to juggle about 10 of them, depending on which, if we're counting on all these different issues, because the simultaneous thought is the American people are the hardest working people, and they love to work more than anything else, and they're also lazy bums who want to just suck off the government's teeth. Those two ideas don't conflict. They don't. You can't have them simultaneously. If you have a 7 brain cells, and your brain isn't super smooth. But so there's that. As for what Tia was saying, when it comes to like workers' rights and stuff, none of this stuff would happen without people like us whining on the left for better workers. That's why we don't have child labor laws, which is generally why I believe libertarians are insane. Like the actual party, not the individuals, because they're like national parties out of their minds.
Them too.
Yeah, whatever. They're all crazy. So look, the pandemic showed us a lot. Like Tio was saying about working cities. The fundamental way that we build cities might change because of this, because corporations realize, hey, I don't need to hire a office building in fucking New York and pay, unless you're in WeWorks, and pay like $700, $800 a square foot. When I can have Jim, Bob, and Mary work from home and they get everything done as productively. So that saves costs. So that could change how cities, there's so much that's changing because of the pandemic, and just the worker revolution that could happen is not because of people, rioting on the streets or this Marxian idea of a revolution. It happened due to the collapse of the economy due to a pandemic. And now that the workers have an idea of, how powerful that they can be. Because look, if your job was paying you so little that minimum unemployment is something like 50 to 75% of your wage plus $300, and you were making more money on that, and then they're offered you to come back, and you're like, you don't have the options. Like, why would I do this backbreaking work when I can make more money and go look for somewhere else? Like, you're forcing the people to raise wages. And that's why I think, especially restaurants, because they're so determined to have their people work on minimum wages, and that they're going to be forced, especially for the fact that we have a tip wage that is so low is just mind blowing. Like, every time I think about it, it just makes no sense. And then there's there's just like everything about COVID was like the best thing that came out of COVID is just like the reorganizing of the economy that we're going to see. It's just, the ability for workers to have more power, the increased wages that is going, because like the market is responding. Companies are raising their wages. They have to. Companies are going to shift to how their businesses work. They're going to go more online. They're going to, be a little bit more family friendly because they've been profitable. It's not like the market didn't, it collapsed in the beginning, but it's still at all-time highs now. So it's not like we broke capital. They can understand that, oh, maybe we don't have to break the workers to the level that they were. It's just, look, again, rolling back to the question. Yeah, Americans aren't lazy. We're just paid like shit, and we realized that we didn't have to do that anymore.
Yep.
Fair enough. All right, Carl, hit me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's spot on. I think that basically people realized with this, being freed up, somewhat by the pandemic, even though, as mentioned with unemployment, they were making, some pretty substandard wages. As we've discussed, they were already making substandard wages. So they're thinking, well, why would I return to a job that's going to pay me, the same or less than what I'm currently being given, in order to basically be, treated like a slave. I know here in Canada, for example, we were given $2,000 a month. if you were laid off from your job due to the pandemic. And many people I know started their own ventures using that money. Many people I know, obviously saved that money, invested it so that they could then use that as a resource by which they wouldn't have to return to their job and they could find something better for themselves. I think that's a good thing. I think that that's going to, again, put pressure on these mega corporations to do more to attract labor. And this is just a great way that we have to have gained power for the labor force. And I think that, a lot of these jobs, the people being told that they are essential workers, I think that was a major realization for a lot of people that, now they understand that, well, wait a minute, like you're calling me essential, but you're going to pay me the bare minimum. That those two things don't really go together, right? Like if you're essential, I mean, theoretically, the company should be giving you, a pretty good wage,
Better
right?
wage, yeah.
So what I'm understanding is, a lot of these strikes have popped up along, all across the country. And I think that's great. And I think that we're just going to see that bolster the labor market. And one last thing I want to add in, I think I read about a general strike US wide on October 15th. So I think that if anybody wants to organize their workplace to take part in that's a worthwhile effort. I think general strikes are a good way for us to put some great pressure on the workforce all at once. So as many enterprises as we can get going on this, that's great. And if you're a shopper, if you can't organize a business or your fellow employees to kind of join you in the strike, then do a boycott and don't shop on that day as well. We should make them hurt the way that they often do to us. So that's my last thought there.
No,
Wait, can I add something too? This might be
sure,
a little bit
real
unrelated.
quickie. Go ahead.
The other thing is the beauty of what he brought up about the essential workers is we saw how poor a lot of their conditions are. I think Tyson is like the perfect example. We saw like in the middle of the pandemic, the Tyson flush where they were getting COVID like every day. They had like hundreds and hundreds of cases because of how bad their working conditions are. So by having us look at it through a health crisis, we can understand where the systems break down, and they're going to have to be forced to make changes because it's people are going to be hopefully more health conscious, or those who aren't are going to be dead. And it's going to boost the economy. So maybe the Tyson workers are going to be packed so close. Maybe somebody working in a service industry isn't going to have to come to work with the flu because you pay them so little that they can't go to the doctor.
Fair enough. All right, so here's the deal. Okay, I got 5 more questions before we're going to final thoughts. Okay, so I want to limit all these answers to about 3 minutes, and I'll be keeping time. Okay, I'll let you know when you're about 30 seconds out. Okay. So yeah, sorry, it's just like
Sorry,
No, it's okay.
I'm long-winded.
No. This is not hit
We'll all
against.
try to
To the point.
simultaneously create
It's
revolution.
not hit against anybody. It's just I just want the quicker answers. Okay. So here's the next question. Okay. So this is gonna be kind of long-winded before I actually get to the question, but just to make sure everybody understands where I'm coming from. Okay. So there's been a lot of concern, okay, about automation, okay? We heard about this in one of the last debates last night on Politically Provoked between Disney and Mio, okay? It was talking about automation. There's been a big concern about automation taking over the workforce as a means of replacing low-skilled workers. Now, while this opens up a market for people to become technicians and engineers to create this fantastic product known as automation, it also actually does take away from the human interaction that some people actually need to survive in this world. Human interaction is essential to increase your job skills and your people skills, which these are traits I truly do think that are necessary. However, automation means you can produce more products and services, and in some cases, you can actually produce them more efficiently. Should there be a balance between automation and manual labor force, or should there be certain jobs that are strictly automation and strictly jobs that require manual labor? Or is there a solution that you might think that's better about that? So, Tio, you start first.
Okay, from the beginning of civilization, and I'm not saying humanity, civilization, it was labor-saving devices, right? So used to 10 people had to fish to feed the village, then they found a better way to fish, like they invented a net, and one person was able to do the work of 10, right? So those other 9 people got to become prophets, medicine men, artists, musicians, right? And the same thing back on the 40-hour week thing, knock us back down to 20 hours. 20 hours a week is enough to feed your whole family. And then more artists will appear. More people will make YouTube videos. Like, we'll have more leisure time, so we'll need more leisure to fill our time, right? So that will cause a demand for more artists. And, I love a society with more artists. So that's it. Labor-saving devices at the beginning of civilization. So why are they afraid of them now?
All right, Joe.
Automation can be a good thing or a bad thing as long as people or consumers are kept in the loop economically through a UBI, and that's on top of current social programs. I like to see a left-wing implementation of universal basic income on top of existing programs. May sound expensive, and it is, but it's still a lot cheaper compared to letting poverty exist the way it does. So if ever those things would be automated, the jobs are going to be automated away. I mean, look at your supermarket. They've got those self-checkout lanes. Those are starting to become more and more of a thing. And just a few years ago, it seemed to be like a little curiosity. But automation, like I said, it's a tool like any other. It can be used or misused. And as long as other considerations are taken into account, such as keeping people in the financial loop, not just automating people's jobs out of existence and then telling the people to go to hell. That to me can be the bad way, but the good is universal basic income on top of current social programs would help to alleviate that, to at least to a good degree. But as far as like some jobs being preferably automated or people based, I think that's just gonna come down to some jobs are just very hard to automate, very nuanced, very very difficult for a machine to learn that unless you're like a straight up android like a Data on Star Trek is able to do like to that level of sophistication. But if someone like him exists, then I'm pretty sure he could be put to a much more effective use in other areas. Not just going, would you like more fries with that? It's just how we do it, and as long as we don't cut people out of the economic loop, I think it can be actually end up being a very good thing compared to what we're doing now.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Carl, hit me.
So I think automation is something that, we should definitely move forward with. But obviously, I think that there could be a lot of issues with the labor market there. Like what I would say is actually this is kind of where I would bring in, I guess, one of my critiques of capitalism is that, the best way we can kind of control the negative impacts of automation is by ensuring that, it's not just the shareholders who own these products, but that they're owned by every stakeholder, customers, people in the community here, so that we can reap those fruits, regardless. Like, for example, like obviously, the owner class is going to want to keep their prices the same. But I think that, if you're having to hire one person versus, hundreds, that you're going to be saving a lot there, and that those savings should be passed along to the community. If the bread factory can make all the bread in a day with one guy over there, then maybe maybe the people should be getting free bread by that point. These are things that the people are going to have to fight for. So I think that automation, great thing. Depends on how far we go into the future as well, where this, can get even more problematic. Us as streamers, we know that, there's probably going to be an impact even to our services that we offer. Even artistic services will eventually be affected by these automated processes. So I think that it's important to understand, just who owns these advancements. And I think it should be the community that owns these advancements rather than, specific individuals with a lot of capital.
Okay. All right. Go ahead and hit me, Newt Fresh.
All right. Look, I knew we were going to get UBI when that question came up, but it's the thing. Automation's coming. It's coming. Whether we raise the minimum wage or not, the question is how are we going to solve it? UBI is ultimately going to have to happen because people who aren't as educated aren't going to be able to fix the robots or fix whatever the robot overlords or the AI programs. So not everyone's going to be able to code. Those people deserve to live too. We can't just turn them into mulch and have Soylent Green. It's coming. Like we just have to, we have enough understanding that it's going to happen. We can start to see where the effects of it is. Tio said, automation is happening all the time. Like a really good example of this was the cotton gin. Originally, they thought, maybe it would reduce the need for slaves, and then ultimately it backfired because they realized they had more profit from it. So it's coming. The question is, how do we deal with the inevitable fallout? And the fallout cannot be, well, sucks to be you guys. Now you're shit out of luck. It's we need to build the systems to catch them now before they inevitably fall, and that's why it's called the safety net.
All right, fantastic. All right, so those are all good questions. Okay, so the next question, okay? So this is an interesting one. All right, should all workforces be allowed to unionize to ensure workers get fair wages, health insurance, and benefits, regardless if it's a low-skilled wage job or a high-skilled wage job? Carl, you start.
Yes, 100%. Every workplace should be free to unionize, and I think that we should have some sort of system to crush anti-labor efforts. Here in Canada, we do have, I think, probably a more robust system than you guys have. We do have some closed shops. We have that are kind of mandated by the government. I don't know how far I want to go with using the state to do this, but I do think that it's great that maybe we disincentivize these employers from doing what we've seen them do, which is put up poster boards telling people what the problems are with unionizing, and all these scare tactics that they'll use against their employees, where you'll fear for your job. I think obviously there's gonna be some issues when it comes to obviously if your employer wants to fire you, he'll find a reason. So if you're trying to unionize and the word comes out, regardless of the labor saving measures that we might want to put into place, these employers are probably going to have some sort of power over us. But yeah, I think all in all, 100%, we should all be building these unions or trade networks, or however you want to put it.
All right, Fresh, go ahead.
Well, yes, they should be able to bargain it. I mean, obviously, there's the caveat that not all unions are good or effective. The police union comes to mind. But yeah, everyone should be able to bargain for a union. It's freedom. We're America. Let's land of the free. Let's have more freedom.
Okay, fair enough. Teal.
We live in the United States. Uniting should be one of our main cultural backbones. So yes, I love union. Like me personally, I have a union of my friends that are musicians, and we're all like in a co-op together, and then we're also all in the musicians union, bigger union, trade union. Yes, as many unions as possible to counterbalance the negative aspects of unions, right? Separation of powers, power corrupts. So we have answers to all these, corruption and union problems. The same, let's look at the American government system. We don't want too strong a federal government, so we have state governments to counterbalance. So that's my personal experience, how we would balance the potential corruption that could come from unions. So yes, unions. Yes, please. Yes.
All right, Joe, hit me.
All I can say is unions. No, absolutely. To me, that's a must. But besides that, I think we should also have what's called sectoral bargaining, sectoral unions, to help to glue together all the various unions together to form up a much more solidarity type of arrangement among the workers, not just broken up unions, but there was actual real organization from bottom up on the regional, even national level. I think that would be a real good way to ensure the longevity and the effectiveness of the unions, to where hopefully there's enough sunlight being shown on these unions and how they're running to keep them from being corrupted by influences of management and that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's no brainer to me. Absolutely, 1000%. That's it.
All right, excellent. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to my next question, okay? Should the wealthy be taxed more and be forced to pay their workers and employees better wages and give them benefits since they can afford to do so, or does it seem kind of unfair to penalize them for their successes? Oh, Joe is smiling, so we're gonna start with Joe.
No, I while you're talking, I said yes, real sound. I was like, yeah. Like, no shit. I mean, absolutely. I mean, they make more, they should be paying more. I mean, that's the way it goes. Not just find ways to bribe officials to vote in laws to ease their tax burden and to push the tax burden onto the rest of us. I mean, that's dirty. It's beyond dirty. I'm already rich, but I need to keep more money. Just y'all pay for the upkeep of the economic system, the economic infrastructure that's allowing the business to commence as it is. It's just, to me, it's beyond ridiculous. Absolutely, they should. Right now, they should be squeezed above a certain 100 million. They should be squeezed marginally, at least for was that marginal, or the marginal rate should be at least 90% effective. They got loopholes and tax write-outs, so they'll end up lowering that number probably on the 50-40%, something like that. But we should be doing that and putting a lot more money to the coffers of the government, the funds, and the whatever that may go to, even if it's to offset the or tamp down possible inflation. If you believe in modern monetary theory, which I think is a pretty decent theory. But anywho, so yeah, they should definitely be put more up because they make more, especially when they get that much money. Absolutely, no one forced them to make an income. If they want to pay tax, don't make an income. I don't. That's my what I think about it.
All right. Okay, Fresh.
Look, yeah. Obviously, we should tax them more. There's a whole plethora of reasons why. First off, we should fund the IRS. We put $80 billion into the IRS, and we'll get something between $700 and $1 trillion a year back from people who aren't paying their taxes. Secondly, if we tax Jeff Bezos $100 billion, Jeff Bezos will still have enough money to build his dick rocket. This is not a hard sell. The richest people in the world became 1.7 times made $1.7 trillion more in wealth during the pandemic, where the bottom lost that much money. We saw the largest upward transfer of wealth, and during the first stimulus bill, trickle down is not a thing. They look at some point. I'm not against wealthy people, but at some point when you have your little dragon horde, it would be nice to not have such a big one, because if you have what is the difference between a 180 billion and $80 billion? You still have more money than your next 4 generations are going to spend in their lifetime, unless you're just randomly setting billions of dollars on fire. At some point, you win capital. Do you want to? If we build a system where it says at a certain point you just win capitalism and you have to start over again, fucking do it. If you were so good in the first place that your ideas, I'm definitely going too long, that your ideas got you this much money, do it again. Make it a prestige badge. Let's make it like Call of Duty.
Yep.
You still have 90 seconds, but you're good to go. So, all right, Tio.
All right. In theory, my theory, I wish labor wasn't taxed at all. Whatever you create from your hands or your mind shouldn't be taxed. What should be taxed the fuck out of is capital gains. Sorry about the F-bomb. Capital gains. I want to discourage people to have a society where they're not wanting to create more capital. I want people to want to improve society. So I want to discourage people from. So if you have capital gains taxes high, then people are encouraged to reinvest in their businesses, not just sit on that wealth in that pile of manure, right? That Joe talked about, right? So I want to disincentivize people wanting to build big piles of manure, and I want them to spread it around. And yeah, because look, they should pay more tax. Like the U.S. Navy doesn't help me protect my merchant ships coming from South. Dole uses our U.S. Navy to protect their ships coming to bring their products to sell here, right? So they should pay more taxes, right? Because the Navy's not helping me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I don't want to get too long, but yeah, that's just a bit.
You're good. Okay, Carl, hit me.
Yeah, I think they should 100%. I think we saw, as New Face mentioned there, we saw that the largest upward transfer of wealth during the pandemic. I think Jeff Bezos made something like $77 billion last year, and Elon Musk made something like $140 billion. Meanwhile, a report came out that shows that these people pay less in taxes than any of us on this panel. The reason for that is obvious. It's the tax code is rigged against the average person. The tax code is something like, what is it, 2,600 pages? It's over 1 million words, which is, more than the entire Harry Potter series put together. If you include legal precedent, which, a lot of these top level executives, accountants will use in order to get these special tax breaks, you're looking at something like 70,000 pages worth of materials in total for the tax code. So it's rigged against the average citizen. As Tio said, I think that the average person who uses their labor to make their income should see very little, if any, taxes whatsoever. But these people who are raking in billions of dollars and using the system to kind of even rig the tax system in their favor, so that they can use all these special loopholes to get to the point where they're currently at. I think we should take as much from them as we can.
Can I add one little thing too?
Go for it.
What I want to say is like a lot of these right libertarians love to say that like taxes are theft, but I love to say profits are theft.
Okay.
Think about it.
Fair enough. All right. So
I'm on that board.
yeah. So okay. So this is gonna be. I'm gonna limit these now. These future questions. I've got 2 more questions. Okay. So I'm gonna limit these questions to 2 minutes a piece. All right. So should there be a universal basic income? Tio, you start.
I think that's a Band-Aid system that could work until we to make it to where people do. It's like I'm a perfect example of working universal basic income because, like I said, when I became disabled at 30 years old and got my little disability check, it freed me to be able to pursue my entrepreneurial, creation. I want to fuel creation. So yeah, I think UBI could help us fuel creation, but I would prefer that the society did it, like not the federal government. Like I would prefer like, hey, there's somebody homeless in our community. We feed them. Like we have civic unions where we have places where people who need work and, we put them to work, we train them, we care about our community. And I don't want it to have to come from the top down because it makes us lazy as, you don't care about that homeless guy in the street. Oh, the government's problem, And right. Yeah, that's that. Okay. Sorry. Done.
No worries. All right. So we'll go Fresh, then Joe, and then we'll go Carl. All right, Fresh, go ahead.
Yeah. So I have somebody in my chat yelling at me about the Federal Reserve, and they are right. The interest rates are too low. They're artificially low, and we don't really have a response to that if we deal with the problem. As for UBI, yes, that is that's the thing. It should be better. Giving money to people helps people. That's really all I have to say about that.
To the point. All right. Alex is gone AWOL, I guess.
So I think it's your turn, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why he said 2 guys.
Okay. Well, yeah. Should we do universal basic income? Gee, let me think. Does a bear shit in the woods?
No, right?
Does a bear shit in the woods? Does a pope wear a pointy hat or mountains tall? That's a fucking lily. As long as it's a left wing implementation of a universal basic income and not a UBI that's going to nuke every other social program, including Medicare and Medicaid, and then just give people $1,000 a month. That's a ridiculous way to do it. We can, like I said, we're doing the more expensive thing, like politics is the way it does right fucking now. Just giving people $1,200 a month for adult citizens over 18. Of course, for younger kids as well, those citizens like $300 a month per kid at least. Would great. Even Business Insider said that if we did 1,000, like $1,200 a month for every adult citizen, that it would grow the economy by like trillions over 8 years, something like that. Add like $2.5 trillion to the GDP. I mean, if we did it within 8 years, on top of the savings compared to what we're doing now. So it's a lot of benefits to it. I mean, like I said before, way before. I mean, I'm obsessed with it really, as long as it's on in what I consider a left-wing manner. That's a neoliberal, means-tested nightmare situation. That kind of UBI is absolutely actually counterproductive, as long as it's on top of current social programs. And I'd even go so far as to say, if people needed more social programs to support themselves and their families, so be it. It shouldn't be taxed, and it should be protected against garnishments for existing debt. So, I mean, I think we should go that far with it. It's an investment into the people, an investment into consumers to stay constantly getting the things they need to survive, and then some maybe start a business, pay down debt, get into home ownership. So many wonderful benefits to it. So few downsides. But yeah, of course, absolutely freaking literally. That's it.
All right, go ahead, Carl.
Yeah. So I don't. I guess I would just add in that we should probably have some form of UBI. Our communities, our societies throughout the years have seen a lot of advancements in terms of our productivity. And as I've mentioned before, when we talk about automation, most of these advancements, the profits, the extra, benefits that we've created as a society or as a community have all gone to the top. I think that it's, well past time that we share from the profits of what we've all created, which is, a much better society than what existed in our past. And, I think it's unfair that we make, some people live in a state of abject poverty while other people, again, can own their 16th yacht or whatever, right? I think it's undeniable that we should find a way to even out the system. Again, we already have corporate socialism, so why can't we, the people, get some of our tax money, or some of the tax money to fund things that would actually benefit the average person, rather than all of the benefits always moving to the top. So that's where I'm coming from here.
Okay. No, that's completely fair. All right, last question before we go into final thoughts, okay? So, once again, we'll keep this to within 2 minutes, okay? So, and we'll start with Joe, and then we'll go to Fresh, then Tio, and then Carl, okay? So,
Start with the best. Sorry.
Someone's cocky. It's all good.
I want to say that at no point was I ever the first one to answer one of these questions.
Oh, you weren't? I thought you were.
No.
Oh no, you let Fresh go.
Okay, we'll let Fresh go. My apologies, Fresh. That's not.
That's all good.
So. All right. In a perfect world, what would be your most ideal society as far as minimum wage for the workers and benefits?
Oh shit! I probably shouldn't have said that.
Give me time to think about it.
Yeah, but as for the benefit stuff, like, look, I a lot of it comes down to the social safety net stuff. I think the healthcare should be covered by the government. When it comes to like what a corporation should pay you, it really should just be the wages, and that should be a living wage regardless of what you're doing. Obviously that'll vary based on where you live. I think the best way to do this would to find whatever the baseline is for the poorest nation and set, for the poorest state, and then set it like $1 or $2 higher than that, so that we can, and then other states can build off of whatever that minimum wage is. Other benefits that I think a corporation give you, obviously paid time leave if you are, you should have paid time leave anyway, but then there should be family leave. What the ideal amount for that is, I don't know. It's not whatever we have. I think in the Netherlands, it's like a year or something. It should certainly be higher than what it is now. So the benefits would be that, and then I guess that would be like, I think that's it. Whatever a living wage for where you are is, paid time off for like vacations and stuff, and then parental leave. I think anything else should be as a benefit should be covered by the government. And now I'm gonna say this honestly. Whatever I imagine whatever my baseline is probably further to the right than anyone else on this panel. So I'm very interested to hear what their thoughts are.
All right, Joe.
Actually, the most ideal society, at least economically, not necessarily socially, but economically, would be what Germany's been doing. They got universal health care, they got many social programs. If they would just do a left-wing UBI, it would be damn near ideal for me, because they already do something called co-determination, which is a halfway point between cooperatives and traditionally private businesses. And they do it as a national policy for businesses over 500 workers, to where workers have, from their pool in their own worker business or wherever they're working, representatives put onto the board of directors up to 50%, to where they have some control over the business or the larger business without actual ownership. I think it's an important step, at least for the United States and beyond, to build a culture of workplace democracy and to really get that into people's minds, how that can work and other possibilities from there. So if Germany would just do a universal basic income, I think they have, at least economically, again, they have pretty close to what I would consider pretty damned ideal. Of course, socially, they got unrest going on. And I think hopefully they get that straightened out sooner than later. But economically, I think that's pretty close. Just do UBI, Germany, and you, man. I would love to live there. I'd love to live there now. But that's it.
Gotcha. Carl, hit me.
Yeah, okay. I think in terms of my ideal situation, we would probably move away from the need for a minimum wage. I like that when we touched on unions or, just forming worker cooperatives, I'd like to see more ownership go to the laborers, some form of stakeholder capitalism where the people have, some sort of democratic say on the distribution of profits within their organization. A democratic say, within pricing would also affect a lot of these things that we talked about when it comes to minimum wage. In order to make it a more well-rounded, more kind of controlled environment where, we don't have the government just kind of arbitrarily raising the wage. And then we see all these issues that we've discussed throughout the panel of, prices going up, people losing their jobs, et cetera. I think that if we had a system where we move away from just the shareholders, the profit seekers, from being the ones who control the entire corporation, and that these things like pricing, like employment choices are made by the people who actually work for these businesses, that this would be the ideal system rather than anything that comes with wage work or anything like that. So,
all right, fair enough. Tio.
I'm disappointed in all of you because all of you took a very pragmatic answer. My ideal system, Star Trek or anarcho-communism, where none of the commodities that lead to the pursuit of happiness are commoditized. Like we should have the most healthy available food for free for all our society, so we can make humanity better and stronger, and not have to people worry about their housing. People worry about childcare. No, none of that. Like, don't commoditize that. Like, only commodities should be luxuries, right? And encourage society to want a better society and better. Why is we so in this mode of? Because I know why. Because we're propagandized. Like to think about money all the time. Like, why should I have to pay for food if our society makes it to where we can grow food so cheaply? Like we give. The air is a free commodity. Water should be a free commodity. Like, our society should get together and feed our hungry people. That should be obvious to me. So Star Trek or anarcho-communism for a theory.
I want to get to Star Trek. I want to get to Star Trek one day, sooner than later.
Is that for the space flight, or is it to fuck?
No, I'm talking about. No, I'm talking about.
It's for the green girls.
No, the classless moneyless society.
But that's the side effect.
Living to better ourselves, as Jean-Luc Picard said, living to better ourselves. That was one of his biggest points.
Exactly.
Even Star Trek had a state money currency. I don't know.
The Ferengi did actually.
They had credits because if you read a debt the first 5,000 years by David Graeber, he explains that too. Credit, I'm fine with credits, right? Because used to you would do your neighbor a favor, right? And he wouldn't expect you to pay him. It's like later down the road, hey bro, I helped you build your fence. Could you help me fix my roof?
That's a mutualist economy right there.
Yes, exactly.
Did you just have a debate about mutualism not too long ago?
I did, yeah, with the cat boy.
Yeah, the Cheshire Cat.
That must have been pretty weird.
Yeah.
All right, so and before we go into final thoughts, I just want to, thank my panelists for this evening because, I felt this was a good discussion. Like, everybody was able to get their points across, and I felt this was, once again, a very productive discussion. So, all right, so once we go into final thoughts, okay, I'm going to give everybody 2 minutes to, just tell me what they thought of the panel, where they can find you, whatever you want to say. Whatever you want to say in these final 2 minutes, just let me know. All right, so, Tio, go ahead and kick it off, my friend.
I appreciate us being on the panel. I love that everyone on the panel actually was engaging, not trying to win. Like, my main goal when I discuss politics is either to learn something new. That's my number one goal. My second goal is to teach if I can't learn. And this panel, I think, is good at achieving those kind of goals, because like this debate me bro culture has gotten to where we don't actually want to share ideas. We just want to win the optics game. So I really appreciate you having us on, Alex.
Absolutely.
Like I said, I plan on starting to do some content. I was doing a YouTube channel for a while called The Blind Bassist, but that was more from my music content and issues for the blind. But I do plan on starting, like, I hope Blind TO isn't already taking this. I think I want to start my politics channel called Blind TO. And just, got to get the graphics and stuff and start doing like what you guys are doing. But I appreciate the opportunity, and you can find me on Politically Provoked Discord, and I'll be debating eugenics on Tuesday on the Politically Provoked YouTube. So check me out there. And thanks again, Alex. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, my friend. All right, Carl, hit me.
Yeah, I mean, I want to first thank you, Alex, for having us on. I think this was a great panel. I think we all had a good time, and we probably agreed on most things. And I like that we each brought our own little unique perspective there. So I think as Tio said, I think this is a lot better to kind of building these ideas that we're looking towards kind of putting out there than a lot of the other platforms that we can be on. A lot of times we're focusing on pure rhetoric, and if we're trying to win, but here we actually got to kind of the crux of, some pretty economic processes, which I think, people might still find enjoyable, even though it's usually a drier subject. So I think it's a good way to kind of put that out there. And I just would like to join again if I have the opportunity, but if not, I mean, you guys can find me over at Chance of Flurry. As I said, I'm an anarcho-mutualist. My co-host, he's transferring into the anarchic space along with me, but he's still a bit more right-wing than I am. So it's an interesting dichotomy we have on the show. So if you guys want to come and check it out, I'd appreciate it. Have a good one.
Certainly. All right, Joe, hit me.
It was great, really great here. Y'all supported me, y'all being the backup. No, I was kidding. It was great being here. I like being. We
were the pips. You made us the pips. You're Gladys Knight. We're the pips, huh?
I don't get that
reference. They're a music group, and I'm just a putz. But I'm just a putz. But yeah, it was just fun being here, and it's like, it's great we're all in agreement with most things, and it's good to share our own different perspectives, at least trains of thought and that sort of thing, how we approach solutions to problems. And it's definitely a change of pace than the usual. People get cut off 3 words in, and the other person pivoting and straw manning and insulting. It's like, come on, that shit's so 2018, really. We need to grow beyond that. Me as a leftist, I try to be more it's a key word. Try to be less caustic out the gate. Try to be more even tempered, that sort of thing. Even to those who are nastier, unless they're just going to be encourageable about it. Because I'm interested in opening people's minds toward the idea of workplace democracy, at least partial workplace democracy, pointing to living examples, that sort of thing. But that's pretty much my mission, aside from others, But yeah, thanks for having me on, and y'all can reach me over at New Socialist Era on Twitter or on YouTube. New Socialist Era, just type New Socialist Era in, you'll find it on YouTube's. I do stream every once in a while, one at a time, over on Twitch, same name. But again, if you listen to this, even if you're right wing, I'll follow you back on Twitter, and if you follow me. So I'll catch y'all out.
Appreciate it, man. All right, Fresh.
All right. So first off, I always think I win every debate I'm in all the time, regardless of anything. I also do believe this is a little thing about the debates. I think having smaller creators works better because we don't have to play to an audience. Obviously, once I get bigger, I'm still going to be the same person, so that's not an issue there. I will come on basically whenever, Alex. I enjoy this. I do have to say though, on an interesting note, this broke my streak of my last 2 debates of somebody arguing that we should bomb a different country.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Bomb.
So that's an interesting one. Look, we all agreed pretty much on most of the stuff about minimum wage. We're all various degrees to the left. If you're new or you've never heard of me, I am Fresh Faces New Ideas. I am Fresh Faces New Ideas on Twitch and on YouTube. I'm Faces Ideas on Twitter. If you go to my Twitter, you can find the links to all my stuff there. I actually do have an Instagram. I don't use it. It's mostly for when people put podcasts and stuff up that I do. I generally do politics. Occasionally I do basketball. I will talk to anybody about anything. One of the things that I've told the people in my chat, if you subscribe to me, I'm going to do a conspiracy only subscribers episode where we will cover. I don't give a shit if you want to talk about COVID, if you want to talk about David Stern rigging the draft lottery so that the Knicks got Patrick Ewing. If you want to talk about flat Earth, I will discuss it. I don't care. We need more people for that. But yeah, look, I enjoy this. I hope I can come back again. If any of you guys, Tio, Carl, if you want to join the Discord, I can put it in the chat, Alex, if you want me to, or you guys can follow me there. And I would love to just, have conversations with more people about, their ideologies, because, the more you expose people to, the better. I know Monday I'm going to have a debate with Habeas Humor about socialism versus Bernie's social democracy economics. So if you guys want to pop in for that, that should be around 1. But yeah, I hope to have conversations with you guys in the future. And this is fun. I can't wait to do it again.
Absolutely. So once again, I appreciate everybody and their contributions tonight. So at the end of the day, it's really important, like as employees, like I'm a firm believer that if you take care of your employees, workers, whatever terminology you want to throw in there, if you take care of them, they're going to take care of you. I'm a firm believer that regardless of what field you might be in, it doesn't matter if it's a low-skilled job or a high-skilled job. If you take care of your employees, if you treat them with dignity and respect and make sure they're paid a good wage, I'm not talking about just a wage where they can, function, basically get from point A to point B with their gas money or have to take transportation. I'm talking about like where they can actually provide for their families, because I'm a firm believer that in this country, if we claim to be the greatest country, we should actually be the greatest country, whether it's like affording good education, affording quality foods, making sure that people are able to go to community centers, what have you. It's better to just not just talk about it, but actually be about that action, honestly. Because, I'm a person that believes that if you create a good commodity or a business, you should also be willing to pay people a good, decent wage to make sure they actually are able to make ends meet. You can't just pay people just barely above the poverty line so they can just barely make ends meet, because life happens at any given time. Like, for example, somebody could get sick, or their car breaks down, or it's a variety of different issues. COVID was a real testament to the American spirit, honestly. And even though people are like complaining about, this constant government checks, well, honestly, people are getting these checks, these COVID checks. It's because they need to be able to support and provide for their families, which is so important. Because if you cannot provide for their families, how can you really call yourself the greatest country in the entire world? That's only my personal opinion. I'm not speaking for everybody else here, but I'm pretty sure everybody else agrees here. If, for example, even if we're talking about COVID, if another pandemic strikes, God forbid, or whatever religious affiliation you might have, if you have to lay somebody off because you're worried about considerations, you should also be willing to take care of the workers to make sure they can actually provide for their families. You might take a hit, but just think about what kind of work you might get back. They will remember things like that. If you take care of them when they're not working for you, they're going to come back and be willing to work for you, maybe even twice as strong, especially if you can show that you, the employer, you, the CEO, are willing to take care of your workers. Now, do I think a CEO should be forced to do so? No, but at the same time, because I think of human nature, people are just going to be people. There's nothing you can do to change that. Some people just need to have this little carrot dangled in front of them to understand what it could actually do to benefit them, because that's what some people only think about. They think about making money, and we can disagree with them all we want to, but I think that some people should see the bigger picture about taking care of those that provide for you and the people that work for you. And I'm going to close up with this final quote. This is from my favorite president, Theodore Roosevelt. "We must now see that there never comes any spirit of class antagonism in this country, any spirit of hostility between capitalist and wage worker, between employer and employed, and we can avoid the upgrowth of any such feeling by remembering always to treat each man on his worth as a man, or woman, however you want to put it. Do not hold it for him or against him that he is either rich or poor. If he is a crooked man and rich, hold it against him, not because he is rich, but because he is crooked. If he is not a rich man and crooked, hold it against him, still because he is crooked. If he is a square man, no matter how much or how little money he has, stand by him because he is a square man. Republics have flourished before now and have fallen, and they have usually fallen because there arose within them parties that have represented either the unscrupulous rich or the unscrupulous poor, and that persuaded the majority of the people to substitute loyalty to the one class for loyalty to the people as a whole. And I firmly believe that that is a principle that if we have all followed upon this, I think we could actually benefit from this country as a whole. So, once again, I want to thank all the panelists. I think this was a very, very productive panel, and I feel like we all... The purpose of these panels is not so much to play a gotcha game, but I want everybody, even the audience, to learn something from these panels, and each panelist to learn something from one another. So, once again, panelists, thank you so much. I'm very thankful for everybody's contributions tonight, and I hope everybody enjoys the rest of their weekend. Thank you very much.
I too, man.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
For having me.